All right, so we're into May, and as you can see, real men wear pink. I put this on today and decided I was not going to take it off, and in fact, real men do wear pink. I've worn pink for 30 years, and you know what? I've never had a man give me a hard time, and there's a really good reason. Because if you're a Wolverine, nobody messes with you. All right, I'm just having fun. So yesterday, after the two little presentations I did, I looked at all of this stuff layers deeper, and that isn't to make it more complicated, but it certainly is more nuanced. And some of that nuance I felt and saw and thought about. Farmer and Jones and I bounced around today, playing with each other's heads, which is pretty easy to do. So, the first thing, maybe I ought to do this forward instead of backwards. And not that you know what the heck I'm talking about, but let's take this Syria thing and let's take this last couple of weeks. And we've got short-term play, okay? That's maybe the best way to look at this. We got short-term play, and so here's some of the salient alleged facts. And I say alleged because I don't know that any of this is true. Any of it can be taken at face value. Any of it has a direct relevance, and that we should take any of it either matched with what Q said or on its own as truth. And one of the things I got to today was I listened to an exchange between Pat Buchanan and Sean Hannity, and Hannity kept saying, well, there's this and this and this and this, and the Iranians are doing all these things, and the Israelis proved this, and the bombing was all good. And Pat kept saying, look, it's not necessarily like that. There's no proof that the Iranians have an advanced a nuclear program. That was not true before. And so Hannity comes back and says, well, what about the fact that Obama did all this? Wouldn't Obama have, why would Obama settle with him? Why would Obama do a settlement and a treaty with them if they had nothing to show? And neither one of them got that, or neither one of them were prepared to say that there may very well have been multiple alternative venues and agendas that had nothing to do with Iran having nuclear capacity at the time. Let me give you a for instance or two. Iran is sending money and missiles and training and support to ISIL and the rest of these folks as part of the whole distraction material there, or at least we are told that they are. So if Obama had anything to do with ISIL, wouldn't it be a great deal to pass money through Iran and let Iran do all of the ISIL business and us pay them $150 billion a year to do what they're not already doing, which is creating nuclear material, bomb material, and we could give them $150 billion, twice a year? And they could spend that doing all the terrorist stuff that we want them to spend it on, and have money to spare, plus have a better trade agreement and a better relationship with the United States. Is that a win-win? Well, it's a win-win in a very dark way, but it is clearly within the realm of possibility, right? The realm of potential. And so when we look at who has what agenda, we have to look at not just who the parties are, but who's playing. Russia's playing, Iran's playing, Syria's playing, Israel is playing, the United States is there, France and perhaps Germany, certainly the Brits are there, and they all have their own agenda, and each one of them has reasons to blame everybody else for what's going on. So Trump announces, to get this into some sequence, Trump announces that he's going to withdraw from Syria. And one can say, well, that's what he obviously intended. That's what he said he was going to do as a candidate. Taken at its face, that's the way to treat it. But was it real? Was it a feinted move that is designed to draw people in, to sucker them in, as some people suggested, and as was suggested even by Q, intimated by Q, that maybe that was done there. So was it a lie? Was it a distraction? Was it never intended? Are we going to stay in? Would we have faked pulling out and stayed in, or would we have pulled out no matter what? Are we going to continue to pull out? I don't think we have an answer to any of that. So within a week or so, we have this alleged chemical attack, and everybody screams that it is Assad that did it, that it's the Syrian government that did it, and the alt media came in and said, why would he do it? He'd have to be a total idiot to do it. It's like having the bully on the block walking away from you and you throw a rock at him and make him come back. Now, that wouldn't make sense, would it? So it doesn't make any sense for Assad to do that, even because he knows he's going to be vilified by the entire world, and that he will be bringing the bully back into his yard when the bully had just said, I'm leaving. So that doesn't make any sense. So then we send in these guys that are supposed to inspect, and they're within 5 or 6 or 7 hours of inspecting this site to see whether or not there was a chemical attack or not. And what happens? Well, the Iranians, or the Israelis, allegedly compromised the site, and then we go in and bomb. So we bomb first, and then maybe are going to find out later. Well, what pattern does that fit? Well, it fits what happened a year or so ago in Syria, when we found out after we had gone through the same scenario a year ago, like the American public are total idiots and we don't have any idea what's going on, right? So we went through the same scenario. We bombed first, we condemned, bombed, and then found out 6 months or a year later there was no chemical attack at all. So the pattern, if it is true to force, we should not have bombed this time until we actually found out. Why would we not wait? And what did we gain by not waiting? Well, we gained all this political drama, and who was pushing for it? Well, we don't know for sure. But what is more than that, for those of you who don't remember, we did the exact same thing at the outset of Iraq. We had Colin Powell and Condi Rice and Rumsfeld and all of that cabal that was part of little Georgie Bush, little shrubby Bush, that were getting us into Iraq, that kept saying, well, they've got weapons of mass destruction. And so what did we do? We went in, what was it called? Shock and awe. We killed thousands and thousands and thousands of people with this so-called intense and focused bombing, and only to find out that even scouring the entire country, all we found was a couple old canisters of stuff. So how is the pattern different? Well, it's not. And it should make us as skeptical as possible, whatever possible is, right? It should make us skeptical that all of these transactional scenarios are crap. You know, we're not being told the truth. So then you have the counter, where we supposedly bombed 3 sites where there were stored materials, etc., and there are all kinds of layers of that. Did we really do that? Did we bomb those 3 sites? Russia threatened us, or at least said, don't invade our space, but Russia didn't react or respond to that. And at the same time, Russia said, well, we knocked down 70% of the missiles out of the 100-odd missiles that were sent. Well, those 3 sites that were bombed, you know, there were 2 of them that were nothing more than what it looked like it was a farmhouse. And, you know, a little TNT would have taken them out. And the third one was some kind of an industrial or commercial site that looked like it had been fairly well damaged, but I read in other settings that it could not have been hit more than about 10 times. So what happened to the other 80 or 90 missiles? Did Russia take 70 of them down? And if they did we agree that they were supposed to do that at the outset? You know, the thing is, you think, well, all right, well, Russia said they took them all down, Some people are saying, no, it didn't happen. Some people are saying, yes, it did happen. Well, what if it happened and they agreed to it? Or what if it didn't happen and they agreed that that's what they were going to say? What if they didn't send 100, they only sent 30, and Russia let them pass and then said, but we get bragging rights that we took 70 of them out? We have no idea. Where did the other 69 or 70 of them go? Did anybody see them in mid-air collisions or taken out? I don't think so. And if there's anybody that knows, nobody is telling us. So did the Russians get what they wanted by showing that they have sophisticated ground-to-air missiles there, and by being able to have bragging rights even though these 3 sites were taken out? Nobody died, so obviously everybody knew what the targets were. Russia knew what the targets were, Assad knew what the targets were, and I'm fairly certain that the local communities knew what the targets were too, because I think maybe there was 1 human casualty in one of those rural sites. So how does that fit into it? And then you have this great big shock and awe bomb, the mother of all booms, bombs, whatever you want to call it, blowouts, that everybody has to keep playing with these acronyms, where Israel claims that it knocked out a storage, either a storage facility or a manufacturing facility, and that Iran was in on it, and it was an Iranian site. And I've got lots of questions about that. Was there a big explosion? Yeah. Was it 2.6 on the Richter scale? Yeah, apparently. And that's independently verifiable. But was it a manufacturing site, a storage site? Was it something smaller? Was it non-nuclear? Were there Iranians actually there? All right, so let's back up and take a look at that. The first thing is, why would Iranians put it there? They posited that the Iranians would have deniability, blah, 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 if they had it there. Well, they don't have any deniability if their uranium-1 isotopic fingerprints are on it and they got the stuff and it can be traced. Obviously, there would be, these guys are not, the Iranians are not Arabic, they're Farsi, so all the language stuff would be different. The people that were there would be different. The control site would be different. The methods and management of it would be different. And why, I can tell you that I would not move something out of my country that I am being paid $300 billion a year not to do, and move it to a battle zone where I'm much more likely to be identified, much more likely to be captured. If ISIL falls back, it's a capture zone automatically. So why would I put my most secret process in a high-risk zone? That doesn't even make any sense to me. I'll dig 40 stories deep under the best rock that we've got and put it in there if I'm going to spend 10, 20, $50 billion a year building nuclear material that I don't want anybody to know about. I'm certainly not going to put it in a war zone. That's the last place I'd put it. So that doesn't make any sense to me. So what caused the 2.6 Richter scale? Well, something nobody has even suggested, which is another possibility, and I think it's a very real possibility. And that possibility is that it was an Israeli bomb that blew up, okay? Or multiple bombs. And there's some kind of comment that there were sparks all over and stuff. It looked like there were explosions. Well, I'll tell you, in about one afternoon, I can strap enough stuff onto a mini nuke, knowing no more than I know now, with a crew of folks that could tell me how to do it. And I can create Chinese fireworks that would look really good, right? It may take more than a day or so, but it can be done. And so how do we know that the Israelis didn't fake the whole thing and there was nothing there at all? We don't know that. And who do I trust to tell me that? Well, I don't trust the 3-letter agencies. I don't trust the administration. I don't trust John Bolton. I don't trust Nikki, whatever her name is at the UN outfit. I don't trust the Russians. Of course, they haven't weighed in. I certainly don't trust Assad. Do I trust Netanyahu? No. And Netanyahu goes in and takes credit for it and then says, I have undeniable proof, and we have these things that are secretly there, and there are all these storage stuff, and there is this documentation, and then produces none of it. Nothing that is irrefutably claimed is proven, is actually proven. So in the process, I didn't learn anything there either. And so if you asked me what happened over the last couple of weeks in Syria, I have to tell you honestly, I don't think Q answered it. I don't like that Q made nothing of what the Israelis did going in or out. I don't like that there is nothing there definitive about whose stuff it actually was. There were some intimations of it. I don't like that. I know the Brits and the French and the Americans are probably lying to us because they jumped in before they got the chemical report, the report back on the alleged chemical attack. So I know they're playing games, or they would have waited a day or two. I mean, what's that going to change, right? And then for the Iranians or the Israelis to attack this site that was supposedly there, why didn't the Americans take it out when they took the other 3 sites? Did they know about it? Did they not know about it? Was it actually done? Was the Israeli attack coordinated? In all likelihood, yes. Were we in on that attack? Whose identification, whose intelligence was it that provided the information for us to go forward, and why has none of that intelligence been shared? Why is Netanyahu announcing it, and he is under attack in his own country? He has allegedly stolen a whole bunch of stuff. He is in for corruption. His job may be at risk. So did everybody wink and nod and say, well, Bibi, we're going to let you take the credit for all of this, and we're going to let you announce it, and we're going to let you look like the good guy, and you can be the one that saved everybody from the nuclear program that we want to say. And let me give you one more piece that I don't like, and that is that we've got all these administration folks that did not jump forward and say, well, we have an obvious violation of the Iranian nuclear agreement, the treaty, the fake treaty, that was not properly passed by the Senate. They didn't say that they have proof that the Iranians are in violation. So this is smoke and mirrors. You're going to tell me that Bibi bombed this site and knew that there was a violation of the Iranian, American, and Western deal about not engaging in nuclear development, and that he didn't provide facts and information about that indefensibly or that undeniably make the Iranians guilty. And if he did, then why aren't we saying that? And if he didn't, why are we giving credence to it? And if he did give it, then why aren't we calling the agreement that we have bogus right now? If Trump doesn't like it, and this is clear proof to that effect, then once again, we're not getting what would be the proper follow-through in a setting like that where we have proof, and they toss the stuff on the table and say, no, you can't do it, you're obviously lying to us. Because if they're hiding one, and that doesn't make any sense, then where else are they hiding it, right? And how much was there? And has anybody done a test to see if there are nuclear materials that are part of the fallout of the process that was there? I mean, we can test that stuff on the air, on the ground. There had to have been hundreds of people that had potential access to it. And we do a flyby and pick up the particulate. So we can probably do a satellite breakdown on what was the likely composition of the bomb and what materials were likely in there, and do a breakdown on, wavelengths of some kind or other, to test for the various materials that were there. There's lots of information that is available that we're not getting, right? And it wouldn't be bad if we trusted and believed that any of the information we are being given was accurate. And when I go through the 17 layers of this thing, I'm going to say it doesn't look to me like much of it is very accurate. So let's go back to the whole Q business. And I'm going to say this, and some of you are going to be uncomfortable about it, but I think it needs to be said. I've got people that are channel followers of me that are everything from, wow, this is going to be so great with Q and Trump win, to people that are either quietly or outwardly saying, you guys are all being thrown under the bus. This is just a giant ruse. So let's take a look at what the possibilities are. You know, the obvious one that everybody would like to have, and the one that I give some credence to, in part because there are things that are happening, is that Trump is our guy, Trump wins, and Q is giving us the information that opens it up. And certainly we have gotten lots and lots of clues, and there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of us, that have been pointed to either red pilling or more red pilling than we already have. Secondly, is to say, and you know, so the first thing is, and this is what Q keeps telling us, you know, we've got this in tow, we've got it all figured out. Just sit, you know, pop popcorn and watch. Well, I'm really uncomfortable with that, because I don't think that, you know, on one hand they say organize and get out there and help and support, but there's never been a thing from Q, not once, that says, why don't you guys do X, Y, or Z, which would have been very helpful at any point in this, and it's never been done. How do you organize? How are you going to demonstrate? What kind of marches you're going to have? There was a tip to Tracy Beans, and that's all good, but you know, do more of it? Are we supposed to do it regionally? Are we supposed to get ham radios? Are we supposed to get wavelength stuff? Are we supposed to do community planning? Are we supposed to work with our fire and police departments to get set up in case of a disaster? None of that's been done. None of it's been suggested. None of it's been intimated. So we got a second layer, which is that Trump really wants to be the good guy and is making some progress, but they've had to alter their schedules. And some of that is shown, excuse me, from the sequence that the original Q or the current Q or whoever it is gave us, that they were going to clean up the United States, Asia, and then I think Europe. Well, they did it the other way around. If there's any intimation at all, they did Saudi Arabia, and then they did perhaps North Korea, and now they're going back into Iran. And then are they going to come back to the United States? Are they playing this as they go along? And what progress is being made? So the third one, and this is also readily in evidence, is that Trump has been surrounded by neocons, Ashkenazis, the deep state globalists, and they're everywhere. You know, Merkel and May and Macron are all compromised. They're Goldman Sachs folks, or they have been compromised for a very long time. And those are our allies, right? Well, who's our real ally? Is China our real ally? There's some intimation that, again, Trump has swayed Xi Jinping, is that how you do it? And that Kim Jong-il has come around as a result of it. There's obviously indication that Putin is responsive, and Putin may be a better president for us than we have even now. I mean, Putin may be the one guy that's not in the bag, and I'm not knocking Trump, but Putin at least looks like he stays on the course and he doesn't cross the line. So, and then you've got these folks that say, well, keep your friends close and keep your enemies closer, and so we put Bolton and all the rest of these guys in closer. We got Rudy Giuliani, we've got all kinds of Goldman Sachs banker bunch, Mnuchin and the rest of these guys that are in close. We've got CIA and NSA guys that are still snakes. We've got Mueller and some others that are, Rosenstein, that are obviously bad guys and that have either participated in acquiesced to, covered over, or facilitated dark stuff, including Mueller going to Russia and giving samples of the uranium. How does that work? Well, are these guys flipped? I mean, that's the best way to see it, that they're flipped. But if they're not flipped, then, or even if they're flipped, will they flip back? Are they double, triple agents? Where do they flip back? Number 4 is the possibility that Trump wanted to, but has been co-opted, outsmarted, compromised, blackmailed. And that is, again, a possibility. I mean, anytime Kissinger shows up at the White House, I say, oh, here we go. Does this mean Kissinger's giving him the kiss of death and telling him to do what he's told? And finally, there's the possibility that Trump was never for us, and that this is a ruse. It's all just a big ruse. And that the whole Q thing is a distraction, and it's got people running around like this is some kind of giant scavenger hunt, that all the booms and the rest of this are window dressing, that there are some things that actually appear to be happening, like Kim Jong-il and the rest of that, but is that stage 2? You got to be sophisticated enough to play all of this game, because when you put it on the chessboard, there are apparent moves and there are moves that are hidden, and there are moves that are 17, or 7 turns down that may totally twist what it was that it looked like you were intending to do. So where you have, I could say, if I were on the dark side of this, we're going to make it look like Kim Jong-il has come around and everybody's going to be hunky-dory, and we're all going to be happy, and everybody's going to fall back on their heels and say, finally the goodness is coming, and all of the alt community, that's us, sit and say, well, gee, I'll just watch because the bad guys are being cleaned up. And if that's the case, then our cabal folks, our Illuminati globalists, are just setting this all up and getting the final touches ready for the huge event, which is electrical grid, net grid, natural gas or gasoline fuel disruption, groceries and food disruption, a banking shutdown, some kind of limited nuclear strike, or the rest of it, anything to put sheeple on their knees, begging to be more secure. So is that all possible? Yeah, it's there. Which one do I want to be? Well, I like that Q's our good guy, and I think that is still as likely as anything, and I give credence to what Q says, and I watch for the stuff. But I have to tell you, all the rest of this is part of the undertow. And when I look at what happened in Syria over this last week or so, and see, or 2 weeks, and see that there are all kinds of little games and there are things that don't make sense, then I say to myself, if it doesn't make sense to me, and if they can't make sense to me, if they're simply putting spread over the top of it and hiding what's really there, then what is really there? That's the next question. What is really there? I know that some of you are going to say, gee, he just threw a pile of rocks in my rice pudding, right? Yeah, at some level that's probably true. I have said right from the start that we should be organizing, we should be working on this, we should be independently gaining ground, we should be making some changes ourselves, and we're not doing it. And frankly, even with all of you, with everybody that's watching, we can't fix it, okay? And that's what has stifled me, that we got 24 ham operators and people all over the country. We don't have a quorum anywhere. And unless these other channels get proactive and say, let's throw a couple 100,000 people in it and make some noise, unless that happens, whether it works extremely well, sort of well, or horribly, we're not ready. That's the deal. So that's my little report for the day, and it is a matter of sharing my personal misgivings and the different options that I see. There are probably more than that. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry to throw rocks in your pudding. Really, truly I am. But, I think we need to be real. So if you appreciate, not necessarily like, but appreciate this, give a thumbs up and subscribe if you will. Thanks for your support. I really appreciate it.